Hi everyone, in this Framer tutorial we're going to create these great and cohesive looking 3D scroll animations. I'm gonna leave a link for the file in the description below also, so you can practice and remix as you like. So let's get into it. We're gonna start by creating top part's background. And I'm gonna name the frame top part, and I'm going to make its position fixed. I'll make its top spacing 0, and I'm going to make its width 777. As I designed this as a section that has fixed width and height, these were the optimal values for it. So height is going to be 200 pixels, and I'll make the top part BG's color top part BG from my color styles and change its bottom radiuses to 32 pixels. Then I will create a text element that says 3 reasons to work with us, and I will detach it from the body text style, and I'm gonna start to style it as I need. Font size is going to be 28 pixels and line height is going to be 1.4, and I'm gonna make 3 reasons font weight black, and the rest of it is going to have light font weight. And I'll make sure that the text element is centered vertically and make its left spacing 80 pixels. Now we can start creating our cards, right? So I'm gonna create a new frame in the top part frame and name it card, and make its width 93 pixels and height is going to be 110, and I'm gonna change its fill to card BG, and lastly as style I'm gonna change its radius to 18 pixels. Then I'm going to center it both horizontally and vertically. Next I need to create a text element in my card frame, right? So after selecting the text tool, I'm gonna just create a text element that says 1, and I'm gonna change my numbers style to card text from my text styles, and I'm going to center it to the card. Since we have everything we need for our card component, we can turn our card frame to a component by just right clicking, right? And since I need my card number to be a variable, after selecting it, I'm going to create the label content under the section text. I'm gonna create a plain text variable and change its name to content. Now we can create our other card components, right? After going back to home screen, after renaming the first card 1, I'm going to duplicate it twice. First I'm gonna change the second one's name and the third one's name. And we can easily change the content of our new cards, right? So after selecting them under the component properties, I'm gonna change just the value of the content variable. Let's create the button in our top section. So I'm gonna create a text element that says let's work and change its text style to button text. Then I'm going to wrap it in a stack by just right clicking and selecting add stack, and I'm going to start changing its properties after of course renaming it. First I'm gonna align it vertically to the center, and under position I'm going to make its right value 80, and I'm gonna make its width fit content, and under layout I'm gonna change its padding values. So the horizontal ones are going to be 20 and the vertical ones are going to be 12. And under styles I'm going to change its background to button BG, and radius is going to be 8 pixels. Now we can add the icon to our button, right? After clicking the insert button, I'm going to type material to the search box and drag the material component to the button stack, and I'm gonna lock its aspect ratio and make its width 22 pixels. Now we can change the icon. So after clicking the name under the material component properties, I'm gonna type task, and to find the icon I want, just task alt and change its color to BG and its style to rounded. Since we have everything our button needs to have, we can turn it into a component, right? Right click into it and selecting create component from the drop down. Now all I need to do is creating the hover state of my button. So after clicking the box below the primary variant of my button, I'm gonna select hover from the drop down and I'm gonna change its style to button hover BG. Now we can create the frame for our down arrow, right? After selecting the frame tool, I'm just going to create a frame and name it down arrow and make its position absolute. Pin it to top, make its top spacing 0. I'll also make sure that it's horizontally centered. As you can see from the values, it already is. And I will change its width to 100 pixels and height to 425. And I'll remove its fill. Now we need to add the icon component to our down arrow frame, right? After clicking the insert button, I'm gonna drag the icon component to the down arrow frame and I'll make sure it is pinned to bottom with a bottom spacing of 0. Then I will lock its aspect ratio and make its width 100 pixels and make its opacity 0.8. And under material component properties, I'm gonna change my icon to chevron right. Since I couldn't find the down arrow in the style I want, after selecting the right arrow one, I'm gonna rotate it 90 degrees clockwise and change its color to section BG and make its style rounded. We can start creating our section elements. Again, I'm gonna start by creating a frame and I'm gonna make its width equal to the top part and height is going to be 280 pixels, and I'm gonna make it a stack by pressing the plus button next to layout, and its direction is going to be vertical, leaving the distribute at center. I'll change its align property to start, and gap is going to be 18 pixels. Padding left is going to be 180. And under this style section, I'm going to make its background section BG. And I'll make its radius 32 pixels. We're gonna start creating our section's inner elements with the number we have for our each section. So I'm gonna create a text element, just number 1, and make its position absolute and change its left value to 65. And I'm gonna make sure it is vertically centered. And under the styles, I'm going to change its text style to section no. Next, I'm going to create the section headline element. After creating a regular text element, I'm going to change its text style to section H. The last element that I need for my sections is basically the text they're going to contain, right? The body text of the section. After duplicating the section headline, I'm going to change its style to body under the text styles. And of course, I'm gonna change the text content with the content that I've created with ChatGPT. After renaming our section stack, I'm going to turn it into a component. And in the component screen, we can start creating content variables for our component, right? After selecting the first variable we're going to need, which is going to be section number, I'm going to click the content under the text section and hovering over create variable, I'm going to select plain text and name it section no and leave the default value as it is. And I'm going to do the same for section headline, page, and lastly, in order to create the variable that we need for our section's body text, I'm gonna need a formatted text variable this time, and I'm gonna change the name to section text, and again I'll leave the default value as it is. Then I'll go back to home screen, and since I'm gonna need 3 sections in total, I'm going to duplicate the only section component I have twice, and for second one I'm gonna start changing the content. Since we're going to create scroll transforms, we're gonna create a sample section to be scrolled after our last section to be able to see the scroll transform, exactly like we did in the previous tutorial, which I'm gonna leave a link for in the description below and probably put a card for it. So I'm gonna create a new frame to contain the icon that I'm going to use and name the frame icon. Then I'll make its position absolute, pin it to the bottom and make its bottom margin 0 with 173 pixels, and height is going to be 50 ph. Lastly, I'm gonna remove its fill. Next, I'm gonna add the material component to the icon frame, and under position, I'm gonna pin it to the top while horizontally centering, and make its spacing 12, and locking its aspect ratio. I'm gonna make its width the same as its container, and make its opacity 0.6 under styles, and under the material component section, I will change its name to task alt, and its color to section BG, and its style to rounded. Since we have all the elements we need, we can start creating scroll animations, right? As we need top part to be in front of the everything while we scroll, we're gonna make its z-index under the styles 5. And in order to be able to create section-based scroll transforms, we need to find scroll sections for each of our sections. So I'm gonna do that. 2 for second, and 3 for third one. Now we can start adding scroll transform values to the elements, starting with the text element at the top section. So after selecting it, I'm gonna scroll up in the right sidebar to see the effects section and click into it. I'm gonna select a scroll transform, and the trigger is going to be section in view, and I'm gonna leave the viewport at bottom. And since we need the transform of this element to be by section 1, I'm gonna select it, and under the from section, since we need its actual opacity and scale values to be its starting state, I'm gonna make both opacity and scale 1, and as we scroll through the first section, I'm gonna define the changes we need to occur. So under 2 section, I'm gonna make its opacity 0 and leaving the scale at 1. I'm going to click 3D for the rotate property. I'm gonna rotate it 80 degrees on the y-axis, and its x offset is going to be minus 40 pixels. Now we can preview the transform that we've applied, right? One thing about the preview window size, actually I created this unfortunately with a fixed sized section in mind. Each time before previewing, I'm gonna have to change the viewport height to this certain value. But if you want to create a more flexible file, converting all the spacing values into viewport height, be my guest, and please let me know in the comment section below if you do something crazy like that. After entering the height value, I'm gonna scroll down, and as I see it, can make it better if we change the origin and add some perspective to it. So we're gonna do that. To add origin to our text element, I'm gonna scroll down to the transform section and clicking it, I'm gonna select origin and make it both x and y values 0. And to add a perspective value, I'm gonna click again the transforms label, and even its default value, I'm gonna add the perspective value. So let's preview again. As you see, it looks much better, right? So let's start setting the start or from positions of our other elements. Since their and or to positions are going to be their current ones, we only need to define their from settings for the first half of the animation, right? First, I'll select the card 1 and click in the effects label on the right sidebar. Again, I'm gonna select scroll transform, and trigger is going to be section in view, and section obviously is going to be the first one. And under the from settings, I'll change its scale to 1, and for rotate again, I'm gonna select 3D and y-axis. I'll enter for rotation value minus 80 degrees, and its offset is going to be 285 pixels for x. And I'll leave 2 values as they are, since as I said, we need our end positions for the first half of the animation to be their original size and the opacity. So let's see the preview. Actually, better hide other 2 cards and the bottom for now, right? To be able to see comfortably the scroll transform. So after selecting them, I'm going to change their visible value to no, to make them invisible basically. Now we can preview. As you see, it works great. Actually, I think we also need to add the origin property to our card, right? So again, I'm gonna click transforms and select origin, enter the same values for the X and Y origins. And I'm gonna also add the perspective value for our card. Now we can preview. It looks great and cohesive, right? Now it's time for the second half of our animation for card 1. Since when the section 2 is in the view, we need card 1 to be slid to the left. So after selecting it, I'm gonna click its transform value and clicking the add section button at the bottom. I'm gonna select section 2 and enter its two values. Opacity is going to be 0.5. And I'm gonna leave the scale at 1, rotate is going to be 3D, and the Y value is going to be 80, and its X offset is going to be minus 261, and Y offset is going to be just 1 pixel. So let's see how section 2 animation looks. The first half of the animation happens, and when the section 2 is in the view, our card 1 gets slid to the left. I think it looks great, right? Since we completed the animations for our first card, we're gonna start creating the scroll transforms for our second one. But to make things easier, I'm going to select card 1 and right click in it. I'm gonna copy its style and paste it to the second card. As you see, all the transforms, perspective, origin, etc. values also are pasted. And now I only need to tweak its rotation values. After clicking the transform box under the effects, I'm going to change the section to 2, and in its from state, I'm going to change the Y value to minus 70. And for the second half of its animation, I'm going to select the section to 3 and its Y rotation value to 70. So let's test it. I think it's coming together really nicely, right? For our last card, again, I'm gonna start copying the style of the previous one. And I'm gonna paste it to the third one. As I see it, its content is also pasted, so I'm gonna change it back to 3. And now we can make it transform tweaks, right? So obviously the section to trigger our third card transform is going to be 3. And clicking the from value, since we are increasing the rotation value by 10 degrees for our each card, I'm going to change it to minus 60. And tweaks for the first half of the card 3's animations are completed. Now we can test the first half of our third card's animation. As I see, card 3 is in its 2 state of the animation. I realized that's because we haven't defined a following section for the second half of its animation. Since the trigger for the second half of the third card's animation is going to be this icon frame, and I'm gonna define a scroll section for it, which is going to be 4. And now we can select section 4 as the trigger for the second half of our card 3's animation, right? While we're at it, actually, I'm gonna also edit its rotation value, which is going to be 60. Now we can preview. I guess we completed our cards animations. Now we only need to animate our button elements, right? So I'm gonna make it visible first, and I'm gonna only add an origin value for it, again making it both X and Y values 0. Then I will add a scroll transform to it. I want its from state properties to be opacity 0, scale to be 2.12, and rotate is going to be 3D, and Y value is going to be minus 90, and X offset is going to be minus 175, and Y value is going to be minus 29. Actually, as I want its starting position to be aligned to the third card's left, I'm gonna tweak its Y offset value a little bit. I guess 176 makes sense. So let's test it. No, something's not right, actually. because we want our buttons animation to be triggered by the last section, which is section 4. So let's see. Yeah, seems right. And with a very nice effect, our button. Hope you liked the tutorial. Be sure to subscribe, turn the notifications on, and check my other tutorials. So see you in the next one.